Okay, you know what? Let's kick this one off. Rashab, over to you for intros.
Certainly, thank you so much, Tim. We have a decent crowd joining us. I'm sure more would be joining, but let's get started. So, hello everyone. This is Rishabh. I am a community champion here from Indore, India. I'm joined with my fellow champions, Kit. We have Jitin also joining us and supporting us back from Ghaziabad. Obviously, we have Shivam, and thank you so much for joining. Very super excited for today's session, and I'm even more excited for this amazing speaker that I have. We have Tim Irving. They are Atlassian's senior process owner for incident management and problem management. In short, they are the person you would like when the things go sideways. Typically, Tim leads the design of human-centric ways how to handle high-stakes incidents, and they think about it in a way where the high performance is not all about pushing it 100% all the time, but finding it healthy and sustainable rhythm that actually would work. As a proud neurodivergent voice and Atlassian's lead in Atlassian's disability employment employee resource group, Tim would bring a unique perspective of how we work, how we lead, how we avoid the burnouts. Today's session, we'll be talking about sustaining high performance, the 70% solution. Obviously, Tim would be, sharing a lot of information about that. But let's give it up for Tim, and thank you so much, Tim, for joining. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Jeez, what a hype man. I need to get you to open all my meetings like that, Rashab. But welcome, folks. Super excited to have you here today. This one's really, really exciting for me, right? We're calling it Sustained 70. Over the course of today's presentation, I'm going to show you guys a unique way that you can be a high performer, right? That sort of turns traditional concepts on its head. We're not going to stop there, though. Going to give some awesome tips and guidance so you can get the best out of your working habits, right? So what are we talking about today, Willis? Well, let me tell you three super important things, right? First of all, we're going to talk about percentages and their implications, right? How much percent of effort is too much, and how to aim for that real sweet spot for success, right? We're going to talk about energy cycles as well. What goes up must come down. Those of you who have been high performers, also those of you who are neurodivergent, are probably very familiar with that cycle of energy, right? One day you're riding it, you're firing on all cylinders, everything is going perfect, and then the next day you have overexerted yourself and things are on the way down, right? So we're going to talk about how to tame that cycle, right? So you can be more consistent. And then last but not least, it's not going to be all theory based, right? We do have some really great practical tips because at the end of the day, everything's not clear cut and perfect. We can talk about all of this, stuff all in ambiguity, but we want to give you guys some things that you can actually take away, put them into practice, get them working for you, and to see what this sustained 70 is all about, right? So that's what we're talking about. Why are we talking about it? So this is really the culmination for me of many years of going, why am I tired all the time, right? Why can I just not be firing at 100% all of the time? Because I know when I'm in that zone, I am doing amazing things, but gosh darn it, I just can't seem to harness that on an ongoing basis, right? And so over the years, in coming to Atlassian a couple of years ago, not long after that, I was actually found out I was neurodivergent, and through that came a very big understanding of self, right? And a journey to harness my unique brain wiring to do things in a bit of a different way. I've had a lot of success in doing a lot of this. So today I want to share this with you guys, right? So that you guys can take away some elements, heck, maybe even the whole thing into your daily lives, do some of these practices and get some of the same success that I've been experiencing as well. So let's start off with a spicy assertion. Giving 100% is a lie. Rashab, Shivam, why would I jump in with something so bold? Why do you guys think that 100% is a lie? It's not something we should be doing. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I would agree to that. I mean, after having a little bit experience working for more than a decade, I can confirm that nobody can keep on firing up 100% every day. So giving 100%, I mean, everybody would like to, even I would, and I would my team too. But yeah, I would say that yes, this is a lie. There is always an averaging out that happens daily.
Shivam, your thoughts?
Even yeah, I think so. Like the Rishabh said, like I try to give 100% every time whenever I'm doing anything, like everyday work or maybe my own stuff. But there are some limitations every time when I'm doing anything. That may be my professional work or maybe my personal life work. So I, whenever I complete any work, I find something like that is missing in that part of the work. So yeah, 100% is definitely a lie. There
One
must be like
interesting, yeah, yeah. One interesting thing that I heard you say, Shivam, is you always try to give 100%, right? And
mhm.
that's the thing in today's world, we are inundated with these slogans that we have to give 100%, right? It's everywhere. All of these quotes, right? And then not just that, some people go, well, 100% isn't enough, right? We have to do more than that. We have to give 110%. So now it's not even 100 anymore, right? We're into 110%. And my very favorite one, here's one going, you actually have to give 150%. But the best one out of all of these quotes, which maybe drives this home a little better, 100% of the people who give 110% don't understand math, right? So 100%, it is too much. In doing this, we overexert ourselves and it is a bad thing, right? I'm going to talk about some examples now and take some things that we may traditionally have viewed, in our culture, society, those high performing things, and let's show how none of them quite hit 100%, right? Number one, my favorite, F1. Got to mention the Atlassian Williams racing team, right? So an F1 car, we associate F1 with the absolute pinnacle of automotive engineering, right? The best drivers in the world competing in the best machines that we can put together for a given formula. An F1 car spends less than 1% of its life on the track, right? The rest of that time is in maintenance, development, testing, and travel. So an F1 car, something that we would associate with that very high level, less than 1%, right? And when an F1 car is driven on the track, it is rarely driven to 100% of its capacity. The driver has to pace the fuel, right? Maintain a pace around the track with other competitors. So an F1 car, less than 1% in that high performing zone, which is not even 100%, right? Let's take another example. Cheetah, having a bit of a snooze in this photo, right? A cheetah spends 12% of its life actively moving. One of the fastest animals in the world is only moving for 12% of that, right? And most cheetah chases last only 20 seconds. The fastest animal in the world spends 88% of its time hanging out, snoozing, napping. Now, at this point, you're probably going, T, it feels like you're cherry picking some things very low down on that scale, right? How about you give us something closer to 100%, right? Something closer to that fabled number that we're trying to reach to show how difficult it is to get 100%. Well, I found a perfect example for that, right? Light milk, 98% fat-free. Folks, if the humble milk can't be 100% fat-free, then how can we be expected to hit 100% ourselves, right? And one of my favorite quotes from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the last 2% is the hardest to get. That's why they leave it in the milk. So if light milk can't get 100%, why do we need to be hitting that number, right? Because in fact, sometimes 100% means that something has gone wrong, right? If we're seeing things going at 100% at Atlassian, we're not going, oh, good, we're getting our money's worth out of it, right? We're going, that is abnormal. Something isn't quite right there, right? If you're driving your car around town and your car is at that 100% point, just driving along the road, that's not a good thing, right? You go, hey, I've got to take that to the mechanic. If my laptop is running at 100% while I'm just using it for general things, I'm going to take a look into that, right? Because that is not something I want it to be hitting. That is a bad thing, right? It's eventually something is going to go wrong. There's no give at 100%, right? 100% effort is untenable in the long term, right? We were sold a lie that 100% is the amount that we need to hit, and we need to hit it consistently and all the dang time. And is it a wonder that any of us are feeling a little burnt out, right? Hearing that 100% slogan time in, time out. 100% effort is untenable in the long term. So what's the solution then? If I'm saying 100% isn't what we should be hitting, what do we need to be doing for success? So my spicy assertion number 2, a sustained 70% is better than peaks at 100%. Rishab, Shivam, why might that be?
Yeah, I mean, as you rightly said, even the best of the best machines, or the best of the best, you know, some animals created by God, they don't work 100% all the time. No machine. You rightly said, my if my laptop is doing 100% all the time, I'm barely be able to touch it. It would be so much overheating. So I would certainly say that there is, you always try, or you can try for 100%. The result has to be 100%, but your effort doesn't require to be 100%. And I just got pretty much worked up just by hearing that 70% is better than keep all the time.
Mm, mm.
Like you are
Shivam.
mentioning about the F1 example, and I can relate to one thing. I can relate to my speedometer of my car. Like after 7 RPM, there's a red mark. So I think the 70% is enough for the car. So giving 70% is enough to speed up the car, not to the 9 RPM or the 8 RPM. So I can relate to that thing that 70% is very much better than giving
Mm,
us 100%.
mm. All right, good points, good points. Let me explain with a nice image some other things around the advantages of a sustained 70%, right? We're going to take this. This is an image of our energy cycle, right? Up the very top, times when we are hitting 100% effort, but we hit that 100%, we start to burn out, and then we go down into a trough, right? And then we get over that trough, we get more energy, and then up we go. Now, if we take a line and just go straight through at 70, right? The reason that it's important is because it is sustained, right? So if you're trying to hit peaks of 100%, you're going to hit a trough that is lower than that, right? But 70% is sustainable. And that is the key, right? Because while you may be at that 70% and a colleague around you maybe hits that fabled 100%, right? They may be working about 50% faster than you. But when that colleague then hits that 100%, has the burnout, is then on the way down, you are sitting at 70%. Well, they hit a deep trough, right? And that productivity maybe even bottoms out at 0%, right? And if you are at 70% effort all the way through that at a sustained level, there is no way that someone having those peaks at 100% is going to best you, right? Because on their best days, they may be slightly ahead, but on their worst days, you are still moving forward at the same pace. And that is cumulative over time, right? So that builds and builds and builds. Now we say that 70 and sustained is the best way to go, but ultimately life dictates a lot of things, right? And the thing is not about hitting that sustained 70 day in, day out at that exact perfect level, but to minimize the peaks. And by doing that, we then minimize the troughs, right? So we have something much closer to a sustained 70% so that you keep moving forward and doing fantastic things while the folks around you try and hit that 100%. Maybe they do it for a little bit, but then they burn themselves out, right? They tire themselves out. And all the while you keep pushing forward at a sustainable pace. Now, can we think of some ideas out there in the world, right, where sustained 70 is an example of it? Shivam, Rashab, do you guys have any things where maybe a slow and steady mentality ultimately won out over people who may have presented as higher performing?
I would like to take an example of how any machine, let's take an example as simple as, a power generation unit. No machine in a power generation unit, very important, very much required, but it doesn't get to 100%. Usually it never goes. Talking about an airplane, the airplane is never given all the thrust that it is required to. Any very specific cases you need 100%. Otherwise an average of 60-70% is more than sufficient.
That's 70%. So before we go over to Shivam, that's 70% in the mechanical world is part of where we are drawing that from, right? In the mechanical world, they're not trying to hit 100% because that's a stress test. Things are going to fall apart. But
Yes.
if you go at that 70% utilization, you're within that much better zone, right? Less chance of things breaking down, less maintenance required. So that's a great example. Shivam, can you think of anything?
Yeah, maybe I can think of like by giving 70% and being slow and steady. We can think of many of the ideas. Not only like we are focusing on one thing, but we are completely stress free, and we can think of other things as well, like some innovative ideas that we can implement. And we are not utilizing 100%, so we have some capacity to think of, and we are freeing our mind, not utilizing it by completely.
Excellent points. All right. I have 3 good examples of sustained 70 in action, right? Real world examples. Well, sort of not really for the first one, right? Because this is maybe the oldest known slow and steady wins the race example, right? And here we've got a little bit of a feudal representation of Aesop's fable, right? Because I've got a Mid-Journey subscription and a wild imagination, but the tortoise and the hare is probably one of the well-known examples of this, right? Tortoise challenges the hare to a race. The hare is like, that's easy, I've got this, tears off ahead, gets to the finishing line, decide he's going to flex a little and has a nap, right? So he's sleeping away. The tortoise all the while is moving forward, just goes past the hare to win the race, right? Slow and steady and a consistent pace outdoes the tortoise. But I've got some good real world examples too, right? Not just confined to story tales. If anyone out there doesn't know Cliff Young, it's a heck of a story, right? Cliff Young, at 61 years old, became an ultra marathon winner, right? Perhaps a super unlikely candidate for it. Cliff turned up to the Westfield Sydney to Melbourne ultra marathon, as the picture shows there, in gumboots and work overalls, right, to run an ultra marathon race. Someone there actually gifted him a pair of runners, right? So Cliff started off this race at a very slow pace, trailing behind a lot of the runners by a considerable amount. He accidentally woke up the first night at 2 a.m., right, and started just running while the other competitors were sleeping. He then decided from that point on, you know what, I'm not going to sleep. I'm just going to keep running away at my own slow pace. Cliff not only finished the marathon in first place, right? He finished 10 hours faster than the runner who came in second. Not only was he so successful, but they've actually now called his running style the Young Shuffle, and it's been adopted by ultramarathon runners because it uses less energy, right? And 3 future Sydney to Melbourne ultramarathon runners used that exact same style of running to win, right? So Cliff, perfect example, didn't have to be the fastest, just had to get going, right? And his competitors during the day ran their hearts out. They then had that period where they needed to rest, right? So they hit that peak of running and they had to sleep. And all the while, he just kept going through it. And first place, right? Not only first place, but 10 hours faster than the person who came in second. Now, I've got a more recent and really cool example, right? Going back to F1, of all the places where we thought that this sustained 70 would not take hold, right? Here is a great example. Daniel Ricciardo, Grand Prix winner 2017, right? The story is Daniel initially qualified 10th for this race, right? Had some mishaps, had some issues, things didn't turn out as expected. qualified 10th. Now, in the opening laps, his car picked up some on-track debris, right? And they went, hey, you've got to come in for an unscheduled pit stop. This could damage the car, right? The brakes could have issues. You've got to come in now. So he had to come in for that pit stop. This was by about the 5th lap, right? By the time he re-entered the race, he was in 17th place, right? A lot of people at that point would go, well, there's no way I'm going to be in with a chance now, right? But Daniel went, no, I'm going to do this slow and steady. And he focused on consistent laps, avoiding trouble with competitors, and then a big break came, right? He was able to move from 6th place, got up to 6th place, had this fantastic opportunity, overtook 3 cars in one row, right? Because his consistent work gave him this opportunity. Now, because 1st and 2nd place at the time, one of them had mechanical issues, the other one had to then serve a penalty for some cheeky behavior, Daniel literally coasted to victory, right? He was in 3rd place. The 2 of them then had to go off the track. He sauntered into 1st place with a win, right? Sustained 70 in action. You don't need to hit 100% for sustained periods to outdo your competitors. You just need to sustain that pace at a consistent rate, right? That pace of 70%. So we're talking about 70% as being sort of a key number, right? Now we're going to talk about something related to this, which I've coined as the brittle scale. Rishab, Shivan, that's kind of an interesting word to call something, right? What do we think that the brittle scale might be? What might it involve in this context?
Oh my God, I'm clueless, but it doesn't. I don't want to really associate my scale with the term brittle. I mean, I'm just saying that brittle is not the right word that I would like to associate any scale or anything that I'm measuring with. So yeah, that's my thought on that.
I think I don't know about the brittle, but as the scale is mentioned in the abbreviation, so I can think of like a measuring part, as I can think of. We are measuring something, maybe.
Exactly right. Exactly right. We're calling this the brittle scale, right? If we're going, well, 70% is the sustained one for success. We want to view below that as a sustainable area, right? Something that is malleable. If something comes up, if there is an issue, if there is a problem, we can adapt to that, right? Because we're in that green zone. But 71 to 100%, that's where things get brittle, right? And we call it brittle because the higher you get to 100%, the less it takes for something to really shatter, right? And pull everything down around you. And I know that a lot of you folks have been in that scenario, right? There is the phrase, the straw that broke the camel's back. We're at 99% effort, and then that little bit gets us to 100, and then the whole thing shatters, right? So rather than viewing only as 70% the number that we want to hit, we have to go, well, ultimately we are at the behest of life, right? Of our own circumstance. Sometimes that means that we're going to well and truly be able to be in a green scale, right? There's not too many things competing for our attention, our effort, our work, right? But then conversely, sometimes you have to exist in that zone that is more brittle, right? You might be at a point with your work and personal life where it's all coming together at once, and you simply have to dip into that, right? As part of sustained 70, we recognize that happens, right? But if you go into that brittle area, you then have to come back a little bit, right? To be able to recharge, to be able to nourish yourself, right? And this is really, really important to recognize both sides of that, because you want to spend more time in the green than in the red, because ultimately you're going to have a peak when you hit those higher levels, right? And the higher they are, the lower that trough is going to be, right? And this is not simply something where you're like, I can brute force my way through it, right? I can just get used to and acclimatize to 100%. That is actually the opposite way that it works, right? If you keep throwing yourself at that 100% and going into that brittle zone and going, no, I can do this, and spending more time there, rather than getting better at it, you are going to need to have longer troughs, right? Where your body and your mind needs to recover from the work that you are putting yourself through. You're going to have shorter peaks as a result, right? So to do well in sustained 70, we want to be around that 70% zone, but understanding sometimes we need to go up and sometimes we need to go down. But what we want to do ultimately is we want to be taming the cycle. Now, Rishab and Shivam, I've used the word taming, not eliminating the cycle. Why are we just trying to tame that energy flow for?
Yeah, I would think. I mean, I would try to relate that to risks. You never be able to control risk, right? You always try to mitigate those. Have your best shot, have to be prepared. But that's what we do for risk, right, Rishmin? Similarly, this is something beyond our control. I mean, even if I cannot say that, okay, I'll do 70 this time. It would be 60, then it would be 80, then it would be 50, and some days it would be 110 if I'm, hitting all the balls out of the park in a particular day. So yeah, I would agree that you cannot control, rather you can try to tame it to a optimal level.
Wise words, Shivam.
Yeah, I think taming the cycle is like we can have a control over the work-life balance of that we have. Like we can, like Risham mentioned, we can move upwards and move downwards as well. So that is the thing that I think of the taming the cycle. Like we have a control in our hands only. So
Yes.
we can, if we want to move, put some extra effort, we can increase our like work-life balance to more large, like higher and the lesser, I guess.
Exactly, right? We tame the cycle, we take some of that control, and in doing so, we're able to do more, right? Because we're able to keep closer to that sustained 70. So let's talk about it, right? Going up, going down, some things that we need to watch out for in terms of symptoms. And then the next slides will be some tips around that, right? So starting off, going upwards, right? A lot of people know that when you're in the zone, right, you're taking on work, you are nailing things, you're getting great feedback, right, from other people. They start coming along, hey, can you do this as well? You're doing so well over there, and you feel like you're unstoppable, right? That is the upwards swing. You've got increased motivation or energy. Hyperfocus or flow state is easy, right? If you are neurodiverse, when you're in this state, it's almost as if the planets align, right? And you are in your element. It's very easy to have work wholly consume you and start to do more and more things at a rapid pace. There may be an elevated mood as well. Sometimes a bit of manic excitement comes with that, right? Look at all of the work that I am able to do. This is amazing. This is great. What can I take on next? What can I do over here? What can I do over there? And as a result, there is high productivity, right? Interestingly enough, there is also some new research coming out. If you are neurodiverse, periods of stress and focus may actually reduce your symptoms of neurodiversity as well, right? So you may notice that some of your quirks, some things that ordinarily get in your way are less present, right? Because you're focused in and you've got that workload going. So those are things on the upswing, right? But then we hit that peak, it all sort of falls apart, and then you're on the downwards one, right? A set of different symptoms around this. You start becoming irritable, right? You're no longer in that great mood because the work is falling apart and you are doing less, right? You have decreased energy as well. Things that seemed very simple on the way up are nigh impossible to get out of the way, right? And you have a difficulty in focusing on things. You may be also unable to relax or rest outside of your work environment, right? You might find it very hard to disconnect or maybe do recreational activities that you've found before. And also, if you are neurodiverse as well, then the more nasty side of things can come out, right? You can have pathological demand avoidance rear its ugly head, and you want to do absolutely nothing whatsoever, right? So these are some of those key symptoms around those periods. How do we take this information and put them into some good tips, right? So that you can start to tame this. Well, going up, right? Let's talk about that. When the world is your oyster, everything is coming out as it should be. Recognize that upswing, right? Acknowledge that you are in a optimal state and go, hey, I'm feeling awesome now, but I may be rocketing towards or past that 70% zone, right? Recognize that. Go, where is my energy? Where is it heading? Am I starting to head into the brittle zone, right? Because when you are on a roll and doing your greatest work, you'll think that you can do it forevermore, right? Because you're doing it then and there in the moment. But that's actually a time to recognize, hey, we're starting to go a bit into that brittle zone, right? And counterintuitively, this is the best time for you to set up guardrails and boundaries, right, around your time and effort, particularly when you're on a high, right? It seems like the least likely time that you want to do that, right? When everything is coming up as needed, but that is precisely the time where you go, okay, I am getting into this zone, or I'm already at it now, or maybe I'm a little bit past it. Let's bring it back to that 70, because if we can get it at that point, we can keep going like this indefinitely. That should be your aim, right? If you want it to last indefinitely, keep it at that good level and aim to slow. Don't stop. Don't go, oh, I've got to stop myself dead in my tracks, not do any more work for a day or two, let it build up and come back. You just want to slow that trajectory, right? Monitor your energy and pull back where needed. Your goal isn't to stop working, but to get yourself to that zone of 70%. And the more you do it, the more you will naturally be able to feel where that is, right? Now, more useful things, right? On the way down, when things are at their hardest, 3 very important takeaways, right? Number 1, you must recharge. Sustain 70 is all about you, and it is about taking care of you so that you can do your best. You can't be expected to be the best for everyone else if you're not taking care of yourself, right? I want to introduce you folks to a term, selfish positivity. Go and look it up, right? It is the act of going, I'm going to be selfishly positive, knowing that taking care of myself in this moment allows me to do my best and in turn also take care of others where needed, right? Selfish positivity. Be kind to yourself and make it a priority to recover, because if you don't make it a priority, let me tell you what, your body will, and it takes a long while to recover from professional burnout, right? Months, maybe years, if you are continually hitting those peaks at 100%. So you must recharge. You must be selfishly positive to get yourself in the state where you can do your best. And you have your own needs for recharging, right? Everyone recharges in a different way. You need to do what makes you happy, right? If you want to know whether you're on a peak or a trough right now, grab yourself a piece of paper or a digital one or a Confluence article and write down the 5 things that make you happy. If you can't think of 5 things, that might be a point where you need to go, ooh, how is my overall mental state being, right? So you need to recharge in the ways that make you happy. And if you happen to have different wiring, like neurodivergence, you may recharge in vastly different ways, right? I have ADHD. My stuff is very interest-based, right? I can recharge my energy by finding some novel thing to get interested in, right? This all comes down to knowledge of self, right? What makes you happy? What helps to put you in a good space? It doesn't matter if it's the stupidest hobby in the world, folks. I like driving digital trains and trucks, right? But you know what? At the end of a long day, that brings me joy, and I unabashedly enjoy that. And that is something that you should find for yourself. Kit has nailed 5 of those in chat, right? So I invite all of you folks to do that little exercise as well. 5 things that make you happy. If you struggle, sit down and have a think about that, right? What does that entail? Are you in a good space? Are you in a place where you need to be in these troughs and actually recharge and be kind to yourself, right? Because at the end, burnout needs much longer healing than getting through a trough, right? And if you are in that state of burnout now, that's okay, right? If you can't do anything, do nothing. Long brittle times means that the recharging needs to happen slowly, or slower than you would expect it to be, right? Be patient and nourish yourself. Don't try and push it. Don't try and go, why am I not better now? Treat yourself with some selfish positivity. Work to then slowly overcome those things, right? By nourishing yourself first and foremost. There you go. Kit met his wife at martial arts, so the first two overlap nicely. Must be a hell of a household when a fight erupts, Kit. I've got to say, must be an interesting sight to see some Kill Bill action, perhaps. All right. So some general work tips around the ups and the downs and the brittle zone and the sustained 70, right? So the first one is that the brittle zone is cumulative. You don't have separate ones for work and personal life. And ultimately, sometimes one is a limiting factor for the other, right? So don't beat yourself up if you are working so much that you then can't magically spend all this extra time in other areas of your life, right? Look at your life as a combination of all of these things that will then add to that brittle zone. And sometimes you have to work around that as a whole, right? Which may mean that you need to take some time back from your personal life to nourish yourself, some time back from work, right? But recognize that it's cumulative across everything that is going in your life, right? So if you're having a bad day personally, that can put you in the brittle zone for work as well, right? So you need to be mindful of that. Sometimes you have to be over 70%, as we've said, right? Sometimes you have to delve into that brittle zone because all the things are happening at once. Make sure you recharge afterwards, right? Doing a little bit is okay. You can't always swing for the fences if you are in a low energy zone. Take the little steps forward and keep moving forward, right? Because a little bit adds up. A little bit is also cumulative, right? So if you can't swing for the fences, if you can't do the big wins, just do the little ones day by day, and that will help you start to build up that momentum, right? And at the end of the day, the challenge isn't doing, it's easy to talk about, just do a sustained 70% effort, right? But the challenge comes in establishing what you need to be successful. All right, how are we going for time? All right, what I might do, so the next is distill knowledge. Rather than defer to Rishab and Shivam, let's talk into this, right? Because we've got some real key bits and pieces that I want you guys to take away with, right? Some very key points, very, very useful to help you get the most out of your sustained 70, right? Because there are hacks, there are tricks that you can do to get the most out of your work. Now, because it was the tortoise and the hare, the rest of this is tortoises, right? Tortoises all the way down for the remainder. So we're going to see a few interesting renditions here, right? So 3 distilled tips for ways of work. If you take nothing else away from the session, this page is worth its weight in gold, right? Number 1, deep work. An hour of deep work is worth more than 60 minutes. Focus on cultivating a conducive environment to work, and this is particularly so if you work remotely. You have to create an area where your brain goes, when I inhabit this area, I'm here to do work and I am focused on work and there is nothing else that can distract me. That is where you will do your greatest things, right? It's easy to do that in the office because it's all set up in those areas to make that happen. But if you work remotely, if you work from home, it is paramount that you create a space where you can do deep work and your brain recognizes it's work time, right? Really, really important. Deep work is always where the greatest things will come from in your career. You want to focus on getting into that zone as much as possible. The next one is to work in your optimal hours, leaning into the world of remote work, right? Not everyone does their best work from 9 to 5. There's some infographic I've got somewhere else of famous people in history. And let me tell you, they did the greatest work of their careers at the weirdest time of days. If you have remote or flexible work options, understand when during the day you do your best work and try and tailor your work day to that, right? Atlassian is amazing for this because it is all remote, right? We've got offices people can go into, but sometimes I am up and working at 5 a.m. in the morning, right? Because it's quiet. There's no one else around. Yes, the US folks are up because I'm here in Australia, but it is where I can focus and get things done, right? And really knock things out. Later in the afternoon, I'm in a different headspace. Find out your optimal hours and then find a way within your job to tailor them, right? Not always possible, particularly with different roles, right? If you're doing something queue-based, it can be more difficult to do, but try where possible to get those hours to align with when you do your best work. And if you don't know, try working at different times. You're going to find that there are times where you're naturally inclined to do things. Those are your best hours, right? And then last, impact is best. Skip the small stuff. Urgent doesn't equal important, right? Focus on the most important things and think big picture, right? What are you working towards for the quarter? What are you working towards for the half? And then work backwards from there, right? That is the best way to work, and it makes sure that you're always working towards the biggest things that are going to bring you the biggest gains. Using AI. Now, there's been a lot of AI images throughout this. I know a lot of people get all worked up about whether AI is used for certain things, right? But for everyone writing an angry LinkedIn post about how AI is destroying the world, there is another person using it to do their work quicker, right, than that person, to get a higher quality output. So AI is here to stay, right? If you want to get the most out of your work, this is a free performance enhancer for you to use, right? So for using AI, try different roles which either counter your weaknesses or save you time. One of the AI buffins in my area is actually suggested through stereotype roles, right? So like a PA or a PR assistant. So try getting the AI to inhabit that persona to then counter weaknesses that you may have to get you a better quality of work. More is always more. AI works best with extensive guidance, right? A longer prompt is often better. The more context you give AI, the more guardrails you give it, the better the response is. So don't be afraid to write things longer and longer and longer and longer, because the more that you give it, the more that it will reference, the better the information it will give back to you, right? Don't you love it when there's a little bit of technical difficulties, folks? There we go. It's all working again. Clearly, I just got signed out of Slack, but that's okay. Last important point before you all got a peep of my horribly overfull inbox: legal and privacy implications, right, for AI. There you go, Kit. Things never go sideways here at Atlassian, right? Legal and privacy implications. Understand what AI you can use in your professional world versus your personal world, right? As an example, here at Atlassian, we have the LLM playground. It's what we have to use. A lot of companies frown on you putting company information in your local copy of ChatGPT or Claude, right? So understand what you can use, where you can use it. I'm just saying that we've got Rovo with Atlassian products now, right? So there is a perfect segue into the world of AI to give you some stuff back. Now, that leads us into prompts. And rather than specific, explicit prompts, I want to give you guys some useful guidance so you can get even more out of it, right? Rather than a cookie cutter, give me X, Y, Z. So number one, be detailed, right? Being detailed, it always gives you a better output. If you are repeatedly using the prompt, right, to get it to fill out different things, give you a communications plan for X, Y, Z, A, B, C, give it a template to fill out, right? That's the simplest way to ensure consistency in an AI response. This is what I want you to tell me, AI, give it to me in this format, and it will do it every time, rather than creating, taking creative liberties with how it presents the answer to you, right? Now, AI such as Rovo and MCP can perform what is called retrieval augmented generation, right? Which means it can go out and see other documents that you may have or be using and give a response that has more context, right? So in Rovo's case, I can go, hey, go and take a look at my past 1 to 2 months of work. give me an estimation of how much work it's then going to take to put this into production over the next couple of months, right? Or based on this work here, how much effort am I looking at to implement these things over the coming month? Is that going to overextend myself? How should I plan out doing these things, right? And then Rovo's new deep research feature actually gives you reasoning-based AI across Atlassian products, right? So you can go, hey, based on this person's, this area's confluence space over here, summarize it all for me, give me a key rundown of the top 5 things that need to be done in that area, right? And then it pulls that all out and then summarizes it all very neatly for you. So retrieval augmented generation, it's the reason why things like Rovo are super useful, because rather than you having to go and then feed it this, here's the document where I said that, here's my planner for the next week, it can pull that information in automatically, right? And refer to that and then give you a better response as a result, right? And if you don't have that, well, you've got to feed it that context manually. How are we doing for time? About 11 minutes left. We're getting there, folks, and then we'll get some QA in, right? Last two, give an alternative to hallucinations, aka the AI making things up. If you're worried that it's going to give you back some porkies, maybe a cheeky little lie here and there, call it out. Go, if you are uncertain, if you don't have enough information to make a decision, call that out in your response rather than pretending to make a response up, right? Because when you give AI a prompt and you only give it one action, right? Give me a plan, tell me how I can do better. It is always going to try and achieve that, right? So give it an option in case it can't, and that will make sure that it gives you a more measured response rather than trying to tell you what you want to hear. And then lastly, tweak, tweak, tweak. If the prompt isn't giving you what you want, keep tweaking until it does, right? Sometimes that might require a back and forth between the AI to get there. Sometimes you just need to play around with the prompt until you get into the general vicinity of what you need, right? So some useful information, but the most important thing of all, go away and play with AI, right? Get comfortable in using it. It is a performance enhancer, absolutely, right? And there is a lot you can do to work better, which pulls you out of the brittle zone into that 70% zone. It's almost a silver bullet, right? In the way that it gives you the extra work for relatively little effort. All right, last bits, anti-fragility. Rishabh, Shivam, in one sentence or less, what do you think anti-fragility means?
I guess I'm a bit confused in this.
It's a tricky one, right? Rishabh, what do you think?
Okay, I'm confused. Let me give it a guess. I mean,
I think you
gain
might be on mute
something.
there, Rishabh.
So, can you hear me? No?
That's all right. So Rashab will mime for us what he believes anti-fragility to be. But let's talk
It's
about
you.
this, right?
We
Because
can
it's
hear
a
him.
strange word. What is anti-fragility? Well, it's accepting that life is going wrong is an inevitable part of our existence, right? Like what happened when my screen suddenly went off and I had to go and find where my Safari window is, right? Things go sideways all the time, right? Let's be honest, we're 8 billion people stranded on the third rock from the sun, which is hurtling through space at 100,000 kilometers per hour. It is really quite amazing that we've all made it this far collectively as a species, right? So anti-fragility is things are inevitably going to go wrong, right? Through my speech, something is going to happen and then I'm going to have to go hunting for my window, right? But you know what? With anti-fragility, we understand that and we accept that, right? If you want a nice, easy hack to pull yourself out of the brittle zone, you can't be feeling brittle from a thing that you're not stressed about, right? So become used to life going wrong, right? Accept that life is going to go wrong. And through that brings strength, right? Because you're just expecting things to go wrong rather than to go right all the time. So you're in a better mental state to go, all right, let's go and fix this, right? I suspect that if I asked for a show of hands of people who over the past month stressed over something that was ultimately inconsequential, I would probably see a lot of hands, right? But can't do that because we need to get to QA. But that is the thing, right? The world keeps turning. The thing that you are worried about is ultimately not going to be an issue. So let's just accept that there are going to be issues and we're just going to work around that, right? Reframe our world. Melanie's heard this called realistic pessimism, right? We are equipped for when things go wrong. All right, so in closing, folks, that is Sustain 70, performing at a high level. This is where we're saying it. Performing at a high level isn't about giving 100%. It's about the sustained performance over an extended period. You are always going to lap the person when you're doing 70%, and if they are at the bottom of a trough every single time, right? So take these ideas, guidance, tips into your life, start practicing some of these, right? To start doing healthy and sustainable work, because at the end of the day, it's not about finishing first. Let's embrace our inner tortoise, and victory will be ours. So, folks, what questions do we have? Q&A time. Let's jump into it.
I have a question. Like, some folks are like hyper focused on their work. Like they do very focused in very focused manner. And in the case of brittle scale, they don't seem to have measure their work, like where they need to stop and where they need to when they are going to burn out. So how they can like identify themselves, like as they are hyper focused on their work only. There are many chances of the burnout in that case.
And definitely that rings true for me, Shivam, because I've been in that state many a time, right, where you just wholly get absorbed into the thing, and before you know it, it's been days of doing that, right, and you are feeling beyond exhausted. I think the first step comes from recognizing when you're in that state, right? Wow, I was in a big hyper focus state for today. I did about 4 days of work in one day, right? The first step comes from that knowledge of self, to acknowledge, hey, this work that I'm doing now is in that zone. I need to now be careful, right? Because that energy is like a sparkler. We don't want it to then run quickly out and then we're hurtling down on a trough, right? So starting to understand yourself when you get into these zones, recognize them, go, hey, I've been hyper focusing today. It doesn't feel like that now, but that is taking my energy. I need to understand and be mindful of that. Is there an area I need to pull back in, right? Do I now need to take tonight to rest? Is tomorrow going to be a slower day? The first step starts with yourself and understanding when that happens. Melanie.
Yeah. Sometimes this is for the healthcare and the support teams.
Very much so, right? It takes that effort and that real work to understand yourself and to identify it, but that comes with time, right? As you get better and better at doing it, you have a more intrinsic knowledge, and then you can really adjust that 70% to taste. Melanie.
Thanks for this. It's mind-blowing and I really appreciate it.
Awesome.
I have a short observation and then a question. So my observation is, as a parent and as a Buddhist, I've learned that there's no way you can make other people learn the cool shit I'm learning. And the only way to do this in a way that helps other people is to be the change you want to see. So I always want, wow, this is great. All my colleagues all to instantly take up this practice. If only they all stop burning out as well. It can't happen. And I'm just sharing that recognition with myself, with all of you, that do it yourself, be a good role model, and then just leave it at that. People aren't going to want to bite down on this stuff unless they want to. That's thing one. My question is, I guess, I don't know if you can answer. Have you done this 70 in an organization that doesn't have an overt support for neurodivergence? And how does that work? Because I'm not sure if I want to put my hand up and ever confess in most workplaces. I'm planning to be a 70% person. That's my question.
Good points, right? And to the previous one, you cannot give someone else an epiphany that you've had yourself, right? Which is such a frustrating thing when that light bulb goes off, right? And wanting to share it with the world. But you're right, Melanie, by doing and other people seeing that, that really then leads the way. Now, this is a super interesting question. Sustain 70 is something that I came up with, right? And this has been around my own work and the work that I have done at Atlassian. And the way that I've been able to do it is the proof has been in the pudding, right? By me working in this way and being able to show the workload, there's very little question, right? Well, when are you doing it? How are you doing it? I'm not sure about this. And I know a lot of folks, if you would approach a random manager, I'm going to do a sustained 70, just hitting 70% from now on, that will probably terrify a lot of managers who don't get it, right? So I would say start adopting these practices, right? And as you get success out of it, and as you're able to get more and more work, other people are going to notice, right? They're going to go, how is it that you're able to do all this over here while other people can't hold a candle to them, right? And that's at the point where you can go, this is the way of work, right? So to me, it has been understanding how I work and then to start embracing that, right? And I will admit Atlassian is wonderful, being able to work remotely. I can work all the hours that I choose, but in doing this work and then having the output to show for it, there has then very much been the leeway, right, from managers up above and colleagues over here and over there, right, because they can see that workload continually coming out. So similar to guiding other people to the epiphany, to show people the success of this model, start adopting it. And then once they go, how do you do this all? You go, well, this is the way. Would you folks like to learn? I hope we get to that point, right? That'd be pretty wonderful. But that is what I've essentially done at Atlassian, right? And if I'd led with, hey, I'm just going to work in this completely different way, manager, I hope you're happy with it, I would have had a lot more of an uphill battle, right? But by coming forth with, here's the work there, here is this work, this thing is already done, it really opens the door for that conversation, right? Because they see the outcome first, and then you can give them the method. All right. Very metal. Do we have other questions? I know we're at the 4 p.m. mark. Thank you all for hanging around. You're welcome to hang back for a little bit longer. If we have more questions, just throw your hand up in the sky or jump in and ask.
Not particularly a question, but I mean, I would like to put out this point where, I mean, it's as you correctly said, you have to say no when you are trying to go up the crest. But
Yes.
I can just imagine how difficult it could be to build in habit of acknowledging that, okay, now you are going up, and now you might have to say no for a couple of things. And having said that, in today's world where you try to be productive throughout, I might start feeling guilty if I am not pumping it all the 100%. Not that I don't believe in this, I 100% believe in this, and I have been on burnouts like most of the people on this call are, but I would just start to feel guilty. I know many people who would do the same, where they are not pushing 100, even after knowing that doing this is not sustainable. So I believe I have a lot of answers, Tim, but yeah, that's a point I would like to make here.
I want to give everyone here the permission to not feel guilty, right? Particularly for my neurodiverse cohort. I know you guys probably feel that every day, right? Growing up like that, feeling guilty that you work differently. By embracing who you are and seeing the inherent strengths in that, you can turn it on its head, right? So don't feel guilty that you're not giving 100%. You should go, actually, I'm at the sweet spot of the sustained 70, right? I'm going to see other people come crashing down soon, right? They're going to start having difficulty doing this. And while that's happening, all the while I am continuing to move forward, right? And then that then means, hey, if you need to go into that brittle zone a little bit, you can take it a little bit easy, right? Get back to that green zone while other people are still trying to push through that brittle zone to 100%. You're going, this is my time to pull back a little bit, right? It's not feeling guilty about not giving 100%. It's about going, if I can keep up this 70%, it will be sustained, right? And I'm eventually going to start running laps around everyone else, because while they're napping, I am still moving forward, right? Consistently, day in, day out. And that's what to aim for. So that guilt, sometimes it takes a while to get over, right? Particularly those of us who have grown up with it, who work in different ways. But I want to give all of you here permission to not feel guilty about those things, right? Instead, embrace the things that make you unique, because that is what is going to give you the edge over everyone else. Alex has a great point. When they moved to 4 days a week, their manager didn't like that. So they used annual leave to take every Monday off for 3 months and show them that the output was better, right? Lead with the output and then go with the method after. It's harder to argue with results, right? Now, Chris is gone. I'm wondering how we can integrate or practice this in an organization where high performance is required, especially during performance appraisal for promotion review. Can you help elaborate on this? I do this in Atlassian. Atlassian has a performance culture. Every 6 months, we have to sing for our supper. People don't care what happened 6 months before that. It is all about what you did in that quarter, in that cycle. And let me tell you, folks, without going into too much confidential information, I am going very, very well, right? Particularly against my cohort. So this whole thing is what I have actually come up with, and it's what I do in a high performing organization. And I have people asking me, Tim, how do you do this all, right? And it's not that thing of doing 100%. It's, well, other people like, oh, they've hit that height and they're slowing down. I can then just keep moving forward day in, day out, right? So it works for all levels. It works for a high performing organization, because I am in one right now. And this is what I have essentially formed to be successful in this, right? Quarter in, quarter out, adopting these principles and going, now is the time to ease off a little bit, right? Put the brakes on, ease off the gas. That has helped me consistently deliver things year round, while other people don't have the energy to do so, right? So works in high performance. But hey, folks, this is something that didn't exist in slide form, right? Until today. This is the first time that I am sharing it with you folks. So when I challenge you to go out and do this, if you are having success, come back and let me know, right? I've got a level of confidence because I'm able to do these things well. I've been figuring it out as I go. But if you too are having a similar level of success, let's talk and keep this way of work going. All right, folks, we are 5 minutes over. What questions do we have? Final call.
I believe, Tim, those were all the questions, and I can see a lot of
Awesome.
thank yous and kudos. What an amazing job you just did.
That's
Thank
a really
you.
good session.
Thank you so much. And thank you very much to Rishab and Shivam. Excellent to have you guys along from the ride. Kat has mentioned she's dropping out, but the less I work, the more effective I can be. Isn't that a weird thing to say? But off the back of this, doesn't that all make sense? So I challenge you guys, go and put this into action. If you're having success, hit me up on LinkedIn and let me know. Can't wait to see you guys at a future Atlassian community session. Thanks so much for coming along, folks. Take care, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tim. And a big shout out to Kit as well for organizing the event.
The wonderful Kit. I'm sure we'll see him at the next session. All right, folks. Take care, everyone.